On the top floor of a luxurious hotel in North Philadelphia, the Aristocrat Hotel, lies a restaurant renowned for its breathtaking nighttime views of the city. High ceilings, gently glowing chandeliers, and the soft melodies of a jazz piano combine to create a truly extraordinary dining ambience. Here, each detail is crafted with the utmost quality, providing a respite from the mundane. My heart raced with excitement as I entered the elevator, eager to celebrate a special occasion. It was my 30th birthday. To make it to dinner, I had adjusted my work schedule, looking forward to an evening with my mother and sister. I envisioned a birthday filled with warm meals, joyful conversations, and loving exchanges. However, the moment I stepped through the restaurant doors, my expectations crumbled dramatically. There sat my mother, Sophia, and my sister, Victoria, seemingly concluding their meal. The table, draped with a pristine white cloth, bore the remnants of their feast, empty plates and wine glasses beside their espresso cups. Confused and hurt, I approached their table. "Mom, Victoria?" I called out, my voice trembling. They looked up, seemingly unfazed. "Oh, Raina, you're here," my mother's voice was calm, devoid of surprise. "What do you mean?" "We had plans," I managed to say, my voice hoarse. "Yes, we thought you were too busy, so we started without you," she replied as if it was the most natural thing. Feeling a knot in my chest, I protested, "But I told you I was coming. We weren't sure you'd actually make it, and we didn't want to waste the reservation," my mother explained nonchalantly. Speechless, I watched as Victoria casually pushed the bill towards me. "Here, Raina. It's your turn to pay," she said, a smirk playing on her lips. "You're joking, right?" I stammered, disbelief washing over me. "No joke," Victoria chuckled. "You're doing well at work. You can handle this." Stunned, I replied, "But it's my birthday. Why should I be paying?" "You earn the most, Raina." "It makes sense," Victoria reasoned as if it justified their actions. My mother, maintaining her graceful composure, added, "You're always so busy, dear. It's hard to make time for family, isn't it? So at least entertain us today." I stood there, dumbfounded. All my life, I had strived to excel, attending school, earning scholarships, and climbing the corporate ladder, all while supporting my family and even paying for Victoria's university fees. Yet here I was, on what should have been a joyous occasion, feeling more like an outsider than a celebrated family member. This dinner, meant to be a celebration, had turned into a stark reminder of the emotional distance that success can sometimes bring. Being treated this way by my own family was heartbreaking. They seemed oblivious to my emotions. "I can't," I muttered under my breath. Victoria's voice pulled me back to the harsh reality as she cocked her head to the side. "What? I can't do this anymore," I declared, rising from my seat. Celebrating without me and then expecting me to foot the bill wasn't just disappointing. It felt like a slap in the face. My mother's expression hardened. "There's no need to overreact. This day was supposed to be about us together. It feels like you both didn't consider how I'd feel at all," I countered, my voice laden with emotion. Victoria exhaled sharply. "Fine, if it's going to upset you this much, Mom can pay." "It's not about who pays," I said, grabbing my purse and standing up. "This isn't right." "Where are you going?" my mother called out as I started to leave. "Home," I replied, my voice steady but cold. "Wait, Raina, are you seriously this upset?" "It was just a little joke," Victoria protested, her tone edging into desperation. "This is no joke to me," I said firmly, leaving them behind. As I exited the restaurant, the chilly night air greeted me, sending shivers down my spine. I pulled out my smartphone and sent a quick message to my fiancé, James. "Can we meet sooner? I need to see you now." Trying to hold back tears, I navigated through the bustling streets of Philadelphia, feeling isolated despite the glamorous city lights and the cheerful chatter around me. My phone vibrated. James had replied, "I'm here for you." "Where are you?" His words made the tears I'd been holding back spill over. I just left the Aristocrat Hotel. I need to see you now, I typed hastily, my fingers trembling with each tap. Soon after, James called. Raina, what happened? Please, I need to see you right now. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 5 minutes, he assured me. Knowing he was coming made it slightly easier to breathe. When a black SUV pulled up beside me shortly after, the driver's window rolled down to reveal James's concerned face. Without a word, I opened the passenger door and climbed in. Are you okay? He asked gently as the door shut. No, I'm not, I confessed, tears falling once more. James didn't ask more, he simply held my hand tightly, his presence a comforting solace. Should we go home? He asked after a moment. No. Let's find somewhere quiet, I replied, understanding my need. James drove us to a quaint cafe tucked away from the city's usual bustle. The cafe was a sanctuary of calm, with soft lighting and a peaceful ambience. We settled into a corner seat, and as James removed his coat, he asked softly, what happened? Opening up to him, I recounted the evening's painful events. It was supposed to be a birthday dinner with my family, but when I arrived, they had already finished their meal. They were just having dessert. James listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine. They said they thought I was too busy, I continued, the hurt evident in my voice. James's quiet support was a balm to the sharp sting of familial betrayal. He didn't interrupt, just let me speak, understanding more than words could express how much I needed this moment of empathy and kindness. When I arrived, Victoria casually handed me the bill, proclaiming it was my birthday present and that it was my turn to pay. Recounting this to James, my emotions welled up again, anger mixed with deep sadness. That's awful, James responded in a soft tone. I can't believe they would treat you like that, especially on your birthday. If they really cared, they wouldn't act this way. I bit my lip, feeling the sting of his words. Just because their family doesn't give them the right to do whatever they want. Should we forgive everything just because we're related? I pondered aloud. James shook his head, his voice firm. Being family doesn't justify hurting someone. It doesn't excuse the pain they've caused you. His understanding and empathy were a revelation to me. Thank you, I murmured. For what? For really listening to me, I said, feeling a warmth spread through me. James smiled gently. Of course, Raina. You're the most important person to me. Comforted by his words, I began to relax as I sipped my warm latte. I don't think I'd feel better going home now. Maybe we should stay out a bit longer, James suggested. How about we go to a hotel or you could come to my place? Let's find somewhere you can forget about today's troubles. Hesitating only for a moment, I realized I didn't want to be alone tonight. Can we go to your place? Absolutely, he said, his smile reassuring. He took my hand, and we left the cafe. The night air was chilly, but James's hand was warm, and the cold didn't bother me as much. We drove to his house, where the atmosphere was immediately welcoming. When James opened the door, a comforting scent greeted us, a blend of woody aromas and a hint of sweet vanilla, as if orchestrated to soothe the soul. Come in, Raina, he said, taking my coat and guiding me into the softly lit living room. The flickering fireplace and the cozy sofa created a serene ambience. It's so comforting here, I remarked. I'm glad to hear that, James replied. Just wait here. I'll be right back. Sitting on the sofa, I took a deep breath. The day's events replayed in my mind, tightening my chest once more. But in the warmth of James's home, the pain began to ease. A few minutes later, James returned carrying a surprise in his hands, a small whole cake on a plate adorned with a single lit candle. Happy birthday, Raina, he said. I instinctively covered my mouth in surprise. James, I whispered, touched by his thoughtfulness. I wanted to properly celebrate your birthday. It's still an important day, he said, placing the cake in front of me. Make a wish and blow out the candle. Feeling overwhelmed, I closed my eyes and made a wish to truly smile from my heart on my next birthday. I blew out the candle gently. "Happy birthday, Reina," James spoke softly, his eyes kind. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I never expected anything this wonderful." "I didn't want your day to end in sadness," he said, cutting the cake and handing me a slice. Taking a bite, the perfect sweetness filled my mouth. "Delicious," I exclaimed, genuinely pleased. James smiled with satisfaction. "I'm glad. I wanted to make this myself." In that moment, surrounded by warmth and genuine care, the pain of the day began to fade, replaced by a feeling of being cherished and understood. Though there wasn't much time, James's effort in preparing the cake meant everything to me. I smiled at him appreciatively. James, looking slightly awkward, shifted his gaze away and quietly said, "Next year, let's celebrate at a restaurant you really want to go to." His words warmed my heart once more. "Will you be with me next year, too?" James gently held my hand, looking earnestly into my eyes. "Of course. Not just next year, but always." His reassurance settled softly into my heart. While the hurt from my family's actions was still raw, having James by my side gave me the strength to look forward again. "Thank you, James. I'm the lucky one to have you in my life," I told him, feeling genuinely grateful. As we enjoyed the cake by the softly flickering fireplace, my birthday, despite its rough start, turned into a special day after all. The next day, I received a phone call from my mother and sister. My mother's voice was unusually gentle, and Victoria spoke in her usual carefree tone. "Reina, about yesterday," my mother started. "We thought you would mind since you're always so busy." "It was just a joke." Victoria chimed in, "We gave you the bill as a sort of joke, thinking you could easily handle it. We didn't expect you to get so upset." Hearing this, I felt a tightness in my chest. Is this really something to dismiss as a half-joke? I pondered aloud. My feelings can't just be brushed aside. "I've always felt," I began, my voice trembling. "Alienated by our family. I didn't reach out because I was busy, but it felt like they were ignoring me. It's always weighed on me." I ended the call abruptly, shaken by voicing the pain I'd held inside. Although I knew it was the right thing to do, I still feared the potential rift with my family. When my mother tried calling back, I didn't pick up, still not ready to face more turmoil while my emotions were raw. Ignoring her calls, I saw messages from Victoria pile up on my phone. "Reina, please don't shut us out. Let's talk this through. We didn't mean to hurt you," her messages read. My heart was torn, caught between my love for my family and the disappointment their actions had caused. This birthday incident made me rethink our relationship, their self-centered attitudes, long-standing indifference, and now their demeaning behavior had piled up, pushing me to a breaking point. Then came a new shock, a letter from a financial institution about a loan taken out without my knowledge. When I investigated, I discovered transactions and travel expenses charged under my name by my mother and sister. Confronting them, Victoria laughed it off, saying, "It's okay, because we're family, right?" My mother added, "You earn enough. You should be able to help us out." That was the last straw. It wasn't just personal betrayal, it was a crime. That night, I turned to James, always gentle and calm, for advice on how to handle this legal and emotional betrayal. His steady presence had always given me clarity, and now more than ever, I needed his guidance to navigate through this storm. James had always stood firm against injustice and irrationality. I knew he would understand my situation and offer sound advice. When I called him, he answered right away, his voice immediately soothing the tension that had built up inside me. However, I needed to stay focused. Taking a deep breath, I laid out the situation for him. My mother and sister took out credit cards and loans in my name without my permission. When I confronted them, they brushed it off, saying it's okay because we're family. I can't just forgive this. James listened in silence before speaking in a measured tone. "What do you want to do?" After a moment of contemplation, I replied firmly, I want to sue them. Just because their family doesn't give them the right to exploit me like this. They've ignored my feelings for too long, and I can't tolerate it anymore. James sighed softly. That's fine. If you've made up your mind, I'll support you fully. First, I'll introduce you to a lawyer I know who specializes in fraud cases. Really? I asked. Yes. Unauthorized use of your name is a clear crime. If we act quickly, we can minimize the damage, and the legal process should be smoother. James's support gave me a sense of security I hadn't felt in a long time. He respected my decision and offered practical solutions without hesitation. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. No need for thanks. You're important to me. Let's go to the lawyer's office together tomorrow. If we're going to fight this, we need to be well prepared. His reassuring voice bolstered my resolve. The next day, James accompanied me to the lawyer's office to discuss the unauthorized use of my name and prepare for legal action. The lawyer was calm and methodical, confirming that the case clearly qualified as fraud. This can be treated as a criminal case, and you can also claim damages in a civil suit. Which direction would you like to proceed in? Both, I answered without hesitation. I was done shedding tears over family dynamics that only caused me pain. The suffering I had endured was now fueled to protect my own life moving forward. A few days later, a legal notice was sent to my family through the lawyer. The news shook my father the most, who had, until then, turned a blind eye to my mother and sister's actions. At his request, I agreed to a family meeting, which included my lawyer and James. We convened in a hotel lounge. Everyone was seated, my mother and sister wearing their usual disgruntled expressions, and my father looking weary. Was it really necessary to make such a big deal out of this? My mother began, her tone dismissive. I responded coolly, if you didn't think it was a big deal, you shouldn't have used my name without permission. Just because we're family, you think you can do whatever you want, even if it makes me miserable. I continued, addressing Victoria's scowl, you're exaggerating. You don't need to blame us so much. Are you really this angry just over some money? She retorted. Just some? I asked, feeling my anger rise. Do you have any idea how much money you spent? Have you ever thought about how hard I've worked to earn that? Their silence followed. Perhaps they had never considered the effort behind the money they so freely spent. Then my father, who had been quiet until now, took a deep breath and admitted his own fault. I was wrong too, he confessed, causing my mother and sister to look at him in surprise. I've spoiled you both too much. The acknowledgement from my father was unexpected. It seemed, at last, there might be a chance for real understanding and change within our family. As we sat in that tense meeting, it was clear that this confrontation, though painful, was a necessary step toward resolving deep-seated issues and reclaiming my independence. I was taken aback by my father's unexpected admission of fault. It was the first time he had ever acknowledged my feelings. My mother and sister, perhaps finally sensing the depth of the situation, looked down in silence. Ever since I was young, no matter how hard I studied or how well I did at school, it seemed like no one saw me. My mother was always more focused on Victoria, and my father was either too busy with work or too exhausted to give me the attention I craved. My efforts felt invisible, and I often felt profoundly alone. Even when I shared my achievements, the responses I received were indifferent or dismissively brief. Over time, I felt as if my very existence was fading away. My voice trembled as I spoke, I wish you had noticed sooner. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and Victoria remained quiet, her head bowed. It's too late now, I continued. After this, I intend to distance myself from you all. But we're family, my mother protested weakly. Family or not, you trampled over my life, didn't you? I replied, leaving her speechless. I will no longer allow myself to be manipulated. I'll marry James and start a new life, I declared firmly. James squeezed my hand in support, silently affirming his presence by my side. The lawyer then spoke up, the legal proceedings have already begun. From now on, this matter will be decided in court. As the trial progressed, the unauthorized use of my name by my mother and sister was formally recognized in court. When the verdict was delivered, I listened quietly as the judge ruled that they were to repay all the debts incurred under my name and also pay damages for their actions. Victoria murmured in disbelief, "This can't be." My mother slumped in her chair, overwhelmed by the reality of the situation. My father sighed deeply, his expression somber. "It's a deserved outcome," I stated calmly, feeling a sense of closure as I looked over at James, who had been my steadfast support throughout the ordeal. He gave me an encouraging smile. After the judgment, my mother and sister faced substantial debts. "We don't have enough money," Victoria lamented, while my mother began to cry, rueing their previous carelessness. My father, looking at them sternly, said, "You've both done whatever you wanted for too long. Have you only just realized how much Reina has suffered?" A few weeks later, my father sent me a message, "We were wrong. I've only now come to understand how terribly we treated you. Can we start over as a family while repaying their debts?" It seemed my mother and sister began to reflect on their actions and made efforts to mend our relationship. Victoria took on multiple part-time jobs, and my mother also started to change her lifestyle. I pondered their request in silence. It wasn't easy to just forgive and forget. On the other end of the phone, I could sense them holding their breath, waiting for my response. "The birthday incident, the fraud, it's not just about those. I've always been hurt by our family's indifference and selfishness," I finally said, expressing the deep-seated pain that had accumulated over the years. The path to reconciliation would be long and uncertain, but it was a start, a cautious beginning to possibly rebuilding what had been broken. I struggled to articulate my feelings, initially feeling like my words couldn't bridge the gap between my family and me. I chose solitude, letting the silence between us deepen. As I overheard my mother's cries and Victoria's hesitations, I eventually made the difficult decision to cease all communication with them as I prepared for a fresh start with James. That evening, as uncertainty hung in the air, I dialed James's number. His voice, a reassuring presence on the other end, prompted me to confess. "I've decided to take some time apart from my family." James listened intently, offering his support with thoughtful understanding. "Reina, it's brave of you to take this step. I'm here for you," he assured me. His words gave me the strength to envision a new beginning for us. Grateful, I thanked him, feeling his support solidify my resolve. With James, progress felt possible, and I voiced my desire to forge a new life together elsewhere. He agreed quietly, emphasizing, "Your happiness is paramount, Reina. Let's look forward to our future." His commitment comforted me, confirming our path forward together. However, the ties to my family weren't easily severed. Despite moving on, their messages persisted, each one reopening old wounds, yet also revealing unspoken care. A poignant note from my mother finally pierced through my defenses, "Reina, are you well? I hope we can reconnect, even slightly. Your well-being is my wish." The genuine concern in her words softened my heart as I pondered their attempts to reach out, including messages from Victoria and my father. The internal conflict was palpable. With time, my desire to reconcile grew stronger. This realization coincided with a surprising discovery: I was pregnant. The news brought a whirlwind of emotions, and amidst this profound life change, I contemplated repairing the familial bonds. Discussing this with James, he responded with a comforting smile. "If reconnecting with your family feels right, I'll support that decision. We're in this together," he said. His encouragement eased my apprehension about reaching out to my family. In the weeks that followed, I initiated contact, starting with tentative conversations that gradually became more heartfelt. My direct dialogue with my mom was particularly moving. "I'm thrilled you're back, Reina. Moving forward, I'll honor your feelings," she vowed. Her acceptance was healing, and it seemed timely to restore our relationship, especially with the new life James and I were about to welcome. I envisioned a future where we supported each other as a family, strengthening our bonds, a new chapter for us all.